Hi, guys. Welcome to Them Nerds. We are going to talk to you today on our Fantasy Friday broadcast about something near and dear to both of our hearts, but especially my cohort on the other half of the screen here, and that is the X-Men. Um, Obviously, the X-Men are a hugely recognizable franchise. A lot of people know them. A lot of people know certain characters from the X-Men franchise, and it's something that you know hasn't exactly been done to perfection. And now that we have kind of a different landscape when it comes to superhero films, we're going to have to address how it kind of becomes absorbed. So, um, Jerry, you and I both are big X-Men fans, but tell me about your upbringing with the X-Men. Why is the X-Men a big deal to you? What's the deal with X-Men for you?
When I was younger, I had been diagnosed with dyslexia, which made reading very hard for me. And so I had a teacher one time tell me to start reading comics because it was smaller words and smaller pictures, and it didn't overcome my brain. So I had the only place that we really could get comic books at the time was at a grocery store because the only comic book store was 5 miles down the road, and it was the '80s, and you had to ride a bike, and people were supposed to watch you. But I had went to Rayleigh's, and that was the one comic book that I can get was X-Men. So I picked it up, and from there on, I was hooked. And I mean, you had not that long after that had came out, we had the animated series come out, and then I was completely hooked. The characters themselves are just so it's the character development within them because you by the time I had picked them up, it was 88 maybe, and so they had already been around for 40 years beforehand.
Yeah,
And so the idea that you have these people who are outcasts that still, everybody hated them, the world hated them, they were looking to try to kill them off, but yet they were still out there trying to help humanity. And it was like, you when you would get to watch or get to read uh, the backstories on these people, the idea that you have Professor X and Eric Lesnar being best friends because Professor X saved Eric Lesnar from the concentration camp, and but yet because of him, Magneto being inside of the concentration camp, his outlook on humanity was save our own, don't worry about the rest. And Professor X was we're all in this together,
right,
and yet they were able to put that uh, aside and still have a friendship, even though every day they're fighting.
right. Um, you mentioned the animated series, and that was a huge one for me. Prior to the animated series, I really only knew about Wolverine. I was a huge Spider-Man fan, and I came to know Wolverine through Secret Wars, um, because I was into black suit Spidey. So of course Secret Wars, um, and once the animated series came on, that was it. I was hooked, and you know we couldn't just stream it if we wanted to. We had to actually sit down and wait and say it's on. I've got to be here, right? Um, and then of course we hit kind of a comic book drought. After that series was over, it kind of took us a while to get good comic book stuff. The X-Men movie franchise that was initially developed through Fox, um, that was pretty exciting. So, we talk about old movies, throwback movies. What do you think about those original X-Men movies? If we take all of the X-Men movies, we had a total of what, seven?
Oh, I think there's even more than that. If
There
you're
was
counting the Wolverine inside the friend, those movies also, then I think you're upwards of probably 12.
right, right. So the first three, like the original cast with Patrick Stewart and that whole crew and that continuity. Uh, you had the original X-Men movie with Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman and all of those folks. Um, Out of all those movies, those original movies, those first three, and the newer ones after First Class when they kind of rebooted the cast a little bit. Which ones do you think are the better ones? What do you think are the ones that just don't pass muster?
X-Men First Class, I think, is probably the best written of the comic book movies. Storyline wise, X2, I think, was of the original three, was my favorite. It really showcased the mutants and their powers in a way that the first one really didn't. The first X-Men movie was just basically a Wolverine movie,
Right.
and I think that had they kept on with the way that X-Men First Class had done it, they would have been on the right path. But it really got off track with that. Casting wise, I think that they did a good job finding people who, when you look at them, you can say, "Oh, I think that's Jean Grey. Oh, that's Cyclops. That's Beast, Kelsey Grammer." And especially because a lot of those characters are people that we as kids put into this is our ultimate fantasy of who would play who. Giving us Patrick Stewart as Professor X is going to blow everybody's mind, because the whole animated time was the biggest show on TV was for kids, X-Men, for adults, Star Trek: The Next Generation. And so for the most of us, we were watching both. And so in our head, that's what we saw. That was Professor X. I think there's some, definitely some continuity issues that actually are kind of comparable to what happened in the MCU. Scarlet Witch had a very Polish accent for Ultron, Age of Ultron. But then if you watch any of the other movies, she speaks like an American. Halle Berry in the first movie, I believe, was trying to do a Southern African accent. But by the rest of the movie, she had became completely Americanized,
Right.
and the accent was gone. So there was things that, like, I guess they just thought nobody will notice. But I mean, it's a pretty big change. You completely change somebody's origin.
Right.
So but I also feel like they never, in any of the X-Men movies, they never gave the potential of showing them like how powerful these people really are. I mean, in the animated series, they had really powerful powers on it. Obviously, because it's a cartoon, they can do that. But they also all seemed like they were in some kind of dire pain when they used it. You know what I mean? So like
the storm sound.
Yeah. Oh, that was her every episode. It's like, and like, I don't know if your only weakness is that you get put in a box. I don't know if that's, you should be able to work past that. There's medication.
For those of you out there watching us who are not privy to the constant FaceTime and PlayStation conversations that Jerry and I have, one of the things that we joke about quite often is the fact that in that animated series, every time Jean Grey was asked to use her power for anything more than like opening a can of peas, she sounded like she was having the most painful orgasm in the history of the world. And Storm, every time there was even anything kind of close to her, she, had this massive freak out. And so we always joke about the Jean Grey sound and the Storm sound.
Jean Grey is an Omega level mutant, and she faints every episode. It's just I think the headband was too tight.
She might have needed to loosen the headband.
Yeah.
Maybe the
ponytail.
Yeah, maybe. That's another thing, like, about the animated series that I think they tried to get away from in the movies, and I think it actually took away from the movies, is the costumes.
Yeah, the costumes are the best part.
Like, for some reason, Jean Grey has like this weird condom on her face in the animated series, and it just seems like that would be for her, and in the films it wasn't there, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just...
Yeah, well, I mean, they all became some kind of weird leather fetish.
They became the BDSM men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The costumes in the X-Men movies, towards the end, they definitely tried to play a little bit more towards the comic books, utilizing a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, which I think did help. Like, that is the X-Men.
Right.
A bunch of people wearing black leather is not, I'm sure in some parts of town that's intimidating.
I'm sure.
And you probably paid extra. But, for watching a show where it's like, this is going to be my childhood lived up on the big screen, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'm not to kink shame the mutants, but
no,
it was a little much. Well, now that Disney has full control, Disney and Marvel Films, they have full control over all of the X-Men characters. They can do whatever they please. it's time to start looking ahead. How do they bridge the gap? We already have Scarlet Witch in the MCU, who plays a massive role in the X comics. How do they, and here's where we get into the fantasy portion of the day, how do we introduce the X-Men back into the MCU? Do we completely reboot, start from scratch, or do we have just a continuation of what's gone on? And if we do a continuation of what's gone on, do we just pick up from kind of, some point within the previous franchise? Do we do like a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse situation where you spend the first, 10 minutes being like, look, the X-Men, mutants, they went to a mansion, they have powers, bald guy with special powers, all these things, right? Do we do that? Like how they did with Uncle Ben in the Into the Spider-Verse? Or do we get a full-on like origin story? Professor X finds the original 5 and trains them up, and how do we approach that? I'm gonna let you riff on that for a little while. Jerry, by the way, those of you out there, is the resident X-Men expert. I love the X-Men, but Jerry is definitely a bigger aficionado than am I. So I'm going to let him riff on that now and kind of give his ideas.
I think it's all going to come down to Wanda. I think that the WandaVision series is going to open up to Doctor Strange into the multiverse, which is going to give her the ability to realize that all the things that she's missing out on now that she lost her brother, she's lost Vision, can be created on her own. And I think you're going to have a situation where you're going to have her either somehow collide multiverses together and making one whole new big universe, or that something she does allows people to jump from timelines into what we are right now. As for, do I think the X-Men need to get the same treatment that Spider-Man got, where we don't need to know his whole story? I don't need to see him get bit. I don't need to see Uncle Ben die, because I already know that. I've seen 4 films or 5 films that show me that. And we all know who the X-Men are by now. So I think that what needs to happen is they're already an established group someplace. There was a storyline in the comics not that far back where Beast ends up actually creating a time time machine, some kind of time paradox thing, where he goes in the past and he grabs the original 5 and brings them into the future. And so everything that they've done in the past is still there, but now they're also in the future, and they're also contributing to helping the cause in the future. And I think would be a great way to do it. You have so many time travelers within the X-Men verse. Bishop, Cable, a lot. There's so many people that you can have a dire need, where maybe mutants start to show up, and you have a whole Days of Future Past that you don't see. Maybe when the movies start back up, you actually have mutants already inside these camps, and they got to pull people from the past to bring them in. I just think that it's really needs to be, they need to give it a real treatment of the X-Men. Don't try to water it down. Don't try to make it to appease everybody. Give it to the fans, because that's really the people who pay the money at the end.
Yeah, I think that we do need to get a Spider-Verse treatment. I would love to see them honor the original roots. I want to see the original 5 as characters. I feel like Angel has sort of been overlooked.
Yeah.
Which is I'm mad about that, because that was one of my favorites growing up. We talked a little bit about this the other day. There are great iterations of the X-Men at different points in history. So if they're going to do a time traveling sort of introduction, it would be a great way to kind of piecemeal a cool team together. There are characters that join the X-Men in the 70s. There are characters that join in the 90s. My favorite era of the X-Men comics was the blue team, gold team era. And, there's characters that are specific to that. The one character that I absolutely must see, and we talked about this, is Jubilee. We need Jubilee to be better, right? especially watching the animated show. She's gotta be a part of it. She's such a cool character. But
And I think that that's the reason why, you know, there's a lot of characters that they did in the franchise that have main great storylines that they really. Storm is a massive part of the X-Men, yet she was given very little dialogue through any of the movies. You never see her how powerful she is. Jubilee, you know, is basically every movie that they made and had her in, she's just like sleeping, like, you know, she's sleeping in the bottom of a whale, or she gets put to sleep, you know, on the grass in uh, the last X-Men movie. It's like she can't stay awake. She's actually taken the role of Jean Grey from the anime series, who faints all the time. So, so there. I would love to see a very good representation of like Psylocke,
yes,
Bishop. You know, when they did Days of Future Past, they actually cast a guy that played Bishop that looked the part. You know, he could have kept on going, and that's the problem too. Is like you put these characters in, they shouldn't be one-offs. You should be seeing them the whole time. You know, that's the whole point of it. It's a you know, a campus of mutants so they can be safe. So where are they going?
well, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that was kind of the Achilles heel of the Fox properties compared to what the MCU has done. They don't. It doesn't seem like they cared about continuity. You know, the MCU will say, "Hey, we're going to cast this guy, and we have plans for him to be in 5 or 6 different movies in these various roles and these various positions," and they execute a long term plan. And it seems like with the X-Men films and Fantastic Four, it was stop start stop start stop start, and it never gained the kind of traction that a franchise like X-Men should have.
I think that also they need to make sure that I would like to see the movie actually take place in the 50s when they were created. You know,
Yes.
so the first movie you showed that, and then somehow they get pulled into the future. So you have this whole, you know, like you said earlier, which is a great idea, where maybe there's somebody who's going through all the different decades and pulling out certain groups of people, and then because of that, at the very end, all there's a whole line of mutants that are created because, and yet you still have your core cast that can be put together as a team. You know, you had Jean Grey, Scott Summers, Bobby Drake, and Beast, Hank McCoy as your main. And did I say Scott Summers? I believe I did. But so, and then Professor X, you know.
Right.
But you can't have the X-Men without Storm and Colossus and Wolverine. And, you know, even giving Banshee some credit at some
Sure.
point, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, they've done these characters in the movies, but they haven't really fleshed them out. And
Yes.
I think that's what's really important. That's what the MCU has done. They've really made it a way to flesh out their characters and make people care about them.
True.
And so I think personally, I would like to see the X-Men movies first start as a Disney Plus show. I think it needs a multiple arc episodes, and then you give them the first time you see them is in some big group movie. You know, there's some big bad and they show up.
Sure. You could even start a Disney. You could do a Disney Plus series that focuses on that first core five, and you know, do 1 or 2 seasons of that, and have that lead into tie into the films. That would be great. I loved the TV shows. They, you know, well, we haven't seen, you know, the Marvel ones they're working on, but like with the Mandalorian, which we're going to talk about on a different show. You know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I love the idea that I get, you know, 10 plus full hours to see the development of the characters and the storylines. It's so much better than a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. But it, you know, I have faith that they're going to, you know, bring this in some cool way. I love the idea that you brought forward about starting in the 50s. The going back to the 50s and 60s would be a really cool way to introduce both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, which we'll talk about it on another day.
Yeah.
Because you know it would do 2 things. It would give them a little bit of the authenticity of their original characters, and it would give us as the audience a reason why they weren't there for all of these major events. You know, and I think if I had to draw it up, I would have Scott Lang go back in time and just totally screw it up, and have, you know, him like messing up, bringing them back, be like kind of the beginning of a lot of the action that happens in those in those moments.
Yeah, I mean, it would also be an amazing thing where, if, the whole butterfly effect,
Sure.
if somehow during the course of the, either in WandaVision or into the multiverse, um, Wanda at some point says no more mutants. And that's the reason why we've gone decades of watching these movies and have never seen any
Sure.
mutants at all. She realizes what she's done. She realizes that now these people are walking around as normal humans. They've lost all their powers. And all she has to do is have the ability to say, to bring them back, and everybody's back.
Yep.
And it would totally explain the reason why nobody knew that they were.
Very true. So we're talking about all these characters that we want to see. We're talking about how we introduce them. Um, let's do a little bit of fantasy casting. First, I got to ask the big question though. What do we do with Wolverine?
I think Wolverine, I think you can't completely lose Hugh Jackman no matter what. But I think that same way I feel about Patrick Stewart, I don't think that it's hard to replace them. But I think you go with somebody much younger and that looks more the part than Hugh Jackman did. But I think that there could be a scene in one of these movies with the multiverse where you see all the original X-Men from the original movie in like a glimpse, but it gives them tribute and brings them into the actual MCU. So but I would love to see, someone like Taron Egerton, I believe his name is, play Wolverine. I would love to see Ray Fiennes play Professor X.
Ooh, that'd be
a good
one.
Yeah, like a Colin Firth to play Magneto. Strong actors to play the top core cast. And then I also think that inclusion is important. So I think that, you have people playing the parts. Like if Storm is from Africa, get a great African actress to play her. You know what I mean? Like, so then we don't have to lose the accent after the first episode.
So they don't forget it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just there.
Yeah.
And, I think it's so open. There's so many good actors out there. I don't know what the young girl's name from that Sabrina TV show on Netflix is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I think she would make like a great Shadowcat.
She would. I'm looking up her name right now as we speak.
And I think that the top 5 should be a little bit older, and then everybody else should be a little bit younger. So,
right.
But when I say older, I don't mean like 40s or 50s. I'm saying like maybe they're in their 20s, and everybody else is young, elementary school to high school level. So the original 5 are the teachers like it was originally, and yet everybody's expected to pull their weight.
Right.
It's kind of crazy that you have X-Men movies where SWAT comes in and can hit them with darts, and this is like literally a school of just people who are like crazy, like powers. They could just destroy them all.
The actress that you were referring to's name is Kiernan Shipka, and
I would never said that.
She's 20, so she would actually be a great age to play Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
I think she would be great. I think Kitty is somebody who needs to be featured pretty heavily. I mentioned Jubilee earlier. I'm a big fan of a show called The Guild, and I think I talked to you a little bit about it. If I could cast Jubilee, I would cast an actress named Amy Okuda. She plays the character Tink on that show, and she's snarky, and I think she would fit the role really well. But you're absolutely right. They need to get these characters established. They need to have a core team, and they've got to just tie it into everything. And I think they will. I think they probably have plan A, B through Z, and we just
sure.
We just
100%.
don't know about it yet. So, so is there anything that you want to avoid in these new X-Men films or TV shows?
Yeah, I want to avoid the idea that having the Phoenix Force is somehow a psychiatric break.
Oh God.
The whole point of the Phoenix Force is that it's a living being that can consume whole universes and planets. It's not a migraine.
I would be a happy camper if I didn't see anything about the Phoenix Force for like 10 movies. It's
See,
been
to
done.
me, as a fan of the X-Men, the Phoenix Saga was like one of the best story arcs. There's a really good story arcs out there. If you haven't read, like, Onslaught, great
Hmm.
story arc, which is a great idea for any crossover that they're going to do, because it basically has every single Marvel character you can think of in it.
Right.
You have I can't even think of all of it because everything that's been going on, or there's so many great storylines out there. Days of Future Past has to be done, and it has to be done the correct way.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's my same gripe about Phoenix is my same gripe about Days of Future Past, my same gripe about Age of Apocalypse. They have already done it, but they did it poorly.
Yes.
And then it's like, well, we have to fix it, because
Yeah,
as
it's
Marvel
like
fans, we got to see it.
saying I write BMW on my Toyota Celica, and for some reason you guys believe that's really a BMW. You can say Days of Future Past and give me 30 seconds of Days of Future Past, but then if the whole rest of the movie has nothing to do with Days of Future Past, why do we even waste our time?
Right, right.
You know, I could totally be fine with the idea of Phoenix being 4 to 5 movies in before they ever get to it. I think that there's like iconic moments within the X-Men universe that need to happen. I need to see Magneto pull the adamantium off of Wolverine's bones.
Yes.
You know,
I have that comic right on my table right here. I was
Yeah.
just reading it.
I want to see Rogue, be an evil baddie with Mystique, and the real Mystique, not some kind of weird reptile.
And Mystique needs to be a villain for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, the whole point is that Mystique is always a villain. She's doing what's good for her interests. So she'll help you out if it benefits her,
Right.
but that's not who she is. She's not there to teach you anything.
Yeah.
She's just, there to, ultimately for Mystique, it's all about a paycheck. So, I would need to see Gambit and like a good version of Gambit.
What about Channing Tatum?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I want to see the real Rogue though, because the Rogue we got in the movies was not Rogue as the character, Yeah. And I understand that it was hard for them to explain how Rogue would have a lot of her powers, because her powers mainly come from stealing it from Captain Marvel.
Right.
So, or Miss Marvel at the time. So, I would love to see that happen in the next movie.
Right.
You could completely have the ability to introduce Mystique and Rogue in the next movie by giving them the impression that they're still dealing with the Skrull, where Mystique is able to change her appearance at any time. And so you could see at the very end, she walks into a room and she thinks the whole time she's dealing with the Skrull, and then it ends up being Mystique. And then Rogue comes out of a shadow from behind her and just clasps her hands on her forehead and just absorbs all of her powers. And then that can explain the reason why she's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're running into the same kind of dilemma that DC has run into with Superman, where you have a hero that is so overpowered, so OP on screen, that you're like, well, why don't they just bring that person in and have them just destroy everything, and then the good guys win? And so they're going to have to make her be off screen a lot, and just like they are with Superman. But we'll talk about Superman on another show.
Yeah.
All right. I think that we have kind of covered everything we need to cover today about the X-Men. As we get into WandaVision, we will probably have some more things to talk about.
I can't wait for that trailer.
I know. It's just, it can't come soon enough. No. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in yet again for our Fantasy Friday episode. Remember, you can catch us right here on YouTube. The channel is Them Nerds. And every Tuesday we will be talking various goings-on in the world of nerddom. Every Thursday we will be doing our Throwback Thursday. And every Friday you can join us here for Fantasy Friday, where we talk about fantasy casting, fantasy storylines, and so forth. Don't forget to follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WeThemNerds. Also, don't forget to do the cheesy internet thing and click on that subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. Jerry, thanks again for joining us here. It's been a pleasure. We've been doing this now for 3 shows, and it's the most fun I've had in a long time. So hope you guys are enjoying watching it as much as we're enjoying doing it. And we'll see you Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.